Yeah, I hope you enjoy it, ladies, and over to you, Kate.
Thank you so much. I do have slides as well, which I wasn't going to do, but actually now that I've done them, they're quite good fun. So I'm going to start from the top, and then I can actually send these around as well if anyone wants them afterwards. So I'm just going to move my face up in the top corner. So I can't see your sort of chat thing and what have you at the moment. So Christina can either tell me or we can just kind of have a chat at the end. But thank you so much for the intro. So I don't really feel like I need to say too much more. And I'm currently in Australia at the moment, if it seems like it's quite dark. So I live in the UK. I've lived there for 10 years, but I am an Aussie, and with all the world craziness, I am back here at the moment. And yeah, like Christina mentioned, I was chronically ill. I had a lot of things that I didn't really pay attention to, and it ended up culminating in chronic fatigue. And so over the last 10 years or so, I've healed everything that I had through detox and cleansing and just healthy lifestyle. So Christina had said that this month was really kind of a month to look at self-care and pausing in reflection for Merit Club. So that is what the talk is about today. And I'm going to talk a bit about self-care, and then at the end is really talking about nutrition and how you can use that as self-care, and also how you can really kind of channel your own inner intuition and your own inner nutritionist, so you can become your own expert, really. And so self-care is a really interesting topic, and it's kind of, I feel like it's thrown around all over the place as a term, but what does it really mean? And, you know, are we really are we self-soothing, or is it self-care that we're looking at? So I'll explain a little bit about what I mean there as we go through. But there's a lot of talk about it in the wellness industry right now. And really, I think sometimes a lot of what we do as self-care is self-soothing. And could we use the self-soothing to bring us to a really nice, calm place to kind of get to the root of challenges that we might be experiencing? So it's just an invitation to look at self-care in a different way. And really that it's about self-care that supports our well-being rather than an escape or recovery from our life. So I go into that a little bit more on the next slide, but often we can categorize self-care as like the pampering and the wine or the baths and all that kind of thing, which are really lovely, but often we're escaping, or we can be escaping our lives with those kinds of things rather than looking at real self-care. And so it's just about getting a bit curious and a bit of kind of backstory. What I thought self-care was a little bit, I guess in the last year or so, was when my anxiety got really high or I was super stressed out, I would take a bath to calm down, or I'd allow myself to watch Netflix, which was actually ridiculous. So, you know, it'd be reaching a point where I needed something that I considered self-care. And, you know, I guess, you know, being into health and wellness, I do obviously eat quite well, and movement is part of my self-care routine, but I wasn't really looking after myself in other areas. And so I've just put in there, have you ever cried in the bath? Because it was this year where I ended up crying in the bath, where I was like, maybe self-care that I'm doing right now isn't really what it's supposed to be. And it was that moment of feeling quite anxious, going to have a bath, and then feeling like I was, I guess, bathing in the weight of the world, or the weight of my thoughts, really. And I rang my friend from the bath, because I took my phone in the bathroom, probably not good self-care. And you know, I said, oh my God, like everything's, you know, just so stressful, and I'm crying in the bath. Who cries in the bath? And, you know, had a good laugh at myself. But it really got me thinking. And this was probably about 4 months ago. I was working full-time in my corporate marketing job that I've now left. I was doing my nutrition and wellness business. and also studying. And I just had way too much on my plate. So a lot of the self-care was really just escaping from my busy, hectic life. So I don't know how many can relate to that. And it's obviously quite interesting being on the Zoom webinar, because I can't kind of get nods or feedback from people, but maybe someone might like to share at the end. But you know, maybe for you it's like, you know, wine or shopping or sex or whatever. And I'm not saying that these things are not self-care, but it's just an invitation to have a look at some of the things in your life or our lives that we may be doing that we classify as self-care that are really sort of just masking or escaping something that's going on. So when I think about true self-care in moments in our life where things might be a little bit much, is sort of assessing, you know, what I should have really done was assess my life, took things off my plate, seeing a psychotherapist, which I did actually, you know, I did end up doing all of these things, but it took a lot of self-soothing to get to a place of being able to do that. And I guess like a shift in mindset from I need to do all these things, otherwise my life will fall apart, to I will fall apart if I don't make some changes. So it's just a bit of context there. And a lot of this talk is going around at the moment as well. So just an invitation to get curious. And then also a lot of those things that we do to really calm ourselves down, like maybe meditation, going for a walk or whatever, can we use those to calm our nervous system down and just to open the door to what's possibly deeper in our lives that's asking for some awareness. So we take the bath, we take the deep breaths, but we also look at whether our lives feel enriched once we're out of the bath or onto the next thing. And I did like this kind of little umbrella image of, you know, self-care really being putting your health first, acknowledging how you feel, you know, being genuine, fueling your body with things that nourish you. And just sort of more, I've got some really easy tips kind of coming up that you can take away with you, and happy to share the slides. But also self-care, you know, beyond the, you know, the pampering, the bubbles and stuff like that, is really having great boundaries and saying no, protecting our energy and what we actually have the time and space for. It can be letting it all out, having a good cry, punching a pillow, like having a difficult conversation. And I know for me, taking some things off my plate, getting some psychotherapy support has enabled me to have some difficult conversations with family that I needed to have, that are all actually really self-care, because I'm looking after myself. I don't know if you can sort of relate to that type of thing, but you know, it's also about, you know, looking at our finances if we need to, and, you know, having the courage to do that if we need. And is there something really nourishing in the morning that we can have as part of what we do? You could be leaving a toxic relationship or leaving a job that you don't like. And something that is quite interesting, I've been talking to a few psychologists about, don't worry, I just have one psychotherapist, not like 100 psychologists that I see, but I know a few people in that area. And there's a lot going on right now about, you know, being exceptional and overachieving, and, you know, what have you achieved out of during COVID? And for some people, that's fantastic. But for others, sort of simply being with ourselves and taking some time to rest and rejuvenate is really what we need, not to be doing more. And so it's sort of like, I guess, an invitation to allow some normal and some regular and some unexceptional in our lives. And not to say that makes us unexceptional people. It's just about looking at how much perhaps anxiety or stress comes from the way we are trained to think we need to be. And I guess also, you know, it can be just having a mess around the house sometimes, or looking at our goals, like, I don't know, maybe a six-pack's a goal, which is a great goal on a bucket list, but is that something that is really self-care, or are we stressing ourselves out? But I found this nice little image as I was putting my sides together, which I really loved, and it sort of breaks down self-care into 4 key areas, and you know, physical, emotional, social, and spiritual. But you know, it's great to see things in there like, you know, positive social media interaction, and you know, it's everywhere, but how can we use it positively? Can we ask for help as self-care? I don't know about you, but I struggle to ask for help sometimes. You know, I want to do it all on my own. And, you know, creating sacred space for yourself is also really great. If that's something that's nourishing for you, you know, rest. Sometimes rest can be the most productive thing we do, and just, you know, managing our stress and having some emotional maturity around our lives as well. And hopefully everyone doesn't feel like chocolate cake after this slide, but you know, salt baths and chocolate cake are definitely ways to enjoy life, and I would definitely put them in the self-care bucket. They're definitely not just for escaping, but it's really you know, it's just this slide and the next one for self-care, but you know, making choices for our long-term wellness, and really no longer choosing a life that just looks good over one that feels good. It might be taking some goals off the to-do list, and you know, being honest, even if that means everyone doesn't like you, and really starting to meet our own needs. So we don't have to be dependent on other people if that's, you know, that's something that occurs in our life. So these were just, you know, again, some people are really visual, so I wanted to make sure I included lots of pictures and images. And self-care again is really like, you know, thinking realistically sometimes too. I don't know about you, but sometimes I can like panic about something, and if I look at it on a scale of like, I'm going to die because of whatever it is, and you know, this is actually really not so bad. It's just reassessing things in life and where I'm really at. And you know, self-care is definitely not an indulgence. It is not selfish. It's not a one-time experience, and it doesn't have to be time consuming. And something that I love to work with people on is small realistic changes over time, and it builds up resilience, and it builds up our self-care habits, and eventually our life can become something that is more of a self-care way of living than not. And so just before I go into another little section, these are just 9 really simple, easy things that you might like to consider for self-care. Prioritizing great sleep. It's tough, I think, sometimes with all of the technology and all of the things we have in our lives, but quality sleep is so great for self-care. Getting outside as much as we can. I appreciate this is perhaps not the best tip at this time, but you know, it's still really important that we do get fresh air and we're out in nature. Being well hydrated as well, and that's not just drinking liters of water a day. It's actually eating your hydration, you know, eating cucumber and watermelon and fruits and veggies. They're really high in water content, and also minerals and fiber and that kind of thing. You know, don't watch the news if possible, or, you know, minimize that. Having real food with good company is so great for our mental well-being and our health, and it switches on lots of genes that are great for the immune system. You know, being mindful of alcohol consumption, I think most of us know that, but and then something that's really fun is pursuing something creative for 10 minutes a day. And it doesn't mean you have to be like Picasso, but it might be that you love gardening, or making a certain kind of food, or whatever. And just switching into a creative space can help calm the mind and the nervous system. It's great for self-care. And something that is in a book I recently read, and something I like to do too, is just remind myself, you know, remind yourself that possibilities are limitless. And this can be really helpful when you're stuck in a loop, or in a situation that didn't go to plan. You know, just that kind of simple reminder that, you know, maybe the universe has something else in store for me, and that there are endless possibilities. And something that Joe Dispenza says, I know Catherine and I do his meditations, is that you don't need most people think when they want to do something new, they need money, but really you don't need money as such, but opportunities. So it's nice to remind yourself that possibilities are limitless and opportunities are limitless as well. And I think laughing often is so great. It's great for the nervous system. It's great for the immune system. And, you know, you can speak to one of your friends that makes you laugh, or just watch some comedy, which is always, you know, a safe bet. You can find someone you like and do that. So that is kind of a quick run through of self-care, and the rest is about self-care too, but it's just sort of shifting gears. And there's just a few slides I have on pausing and reflection in terms of something called good life buckets. And it links back to self-care because it looks at 3 buckets in life. And Jonathan Field's book is one that I've got here. I don't know if hopefully people can see that as well as my screen, but it's looking at having connection, contribution and vitality buckets in our lives. And the idea is that they're balanced in terms of how full they are, and the fuller they are, the better our life. And so this slide is just, I'm going to read through some of these questions, but it's about a kind of a snapshot about where you might be at. And it's not a judgment, and it's not meant to make anyone feel like, oh my gosh, my vitality bucket's empty or whatever. It's about assessing where we're currently at. And then there's some really practical examples that I've got on a slide where we can start to look at filling up the different buckets. So the idea is that our vitality is like how you feel, how energized you are, that kind of thing. Connection is how connected you feel in your relationships. You know, contribution is, you know, are you able to give back or contribute with your gifts? And if your contribution's through the roof but your vitality is empty, it's kind of indicates that you're probably using loads of energy on contributing to the world but not giving back to yourself. So the way that the book looks at this as well is just asking, like spending a minute pondering some of these areas and rating out of 10. So vitality is really, you know, at this moment in time, how satisfied are you with your current level of physical ability? How's your energy, your appearance and well-being? You know, your ability to weather adversity, your capacity to feel calm, aware, sort of optimistic, joyful. And connection, how satisfied are you with the depth and quality of loving relationships, you know, friendships and sense of genuine belonging. And then contribution is really how satisfied are you with the level of meaning that you feel from the way you're bringing your gifts to the world. And that's not necessarily, you know, I've written a book and I'm a published author or a musician or whatever. It's about the small things in life where you're able to contribute with your friends or family or work or school or whatever that could be. And there's quite a lot of points on this slide, but I only wanted to sort of use a few. And, you know, what can you do? These are all from the book, and I will hold that up again in case you can see it, but it's How to Live a Good Life by Jonathan Fields. And to fill up those different buckets, this relates directly back to self-care. You know, can you take a green day? You know, have a day with all things you consider healthy, or add one healthy thing into your day every day to help fill your vitality bucket. Only unknown, I thought this was really interesting, and it's really about what's something you want to do that you're putting off because it's not a sure thing. And this could fill your connection, contribution, vitality bucket. And really what it is sort of like, you know, are you not starting the course you want to do because you're not sure if you'll pass, or not taking the job because you're afraid it might not work out? And so I just read a paragraph from the book which sums that up quite well. And he sort of says, you know, there's no perfect moment, no time when you will know enough to guarantee that you'll get what you want, no time when you'll be 100% sure that you're ready to have a child, fall in love, take a job, move cross country, build a business, show your work, stand in your truth, pursue your dream. Still, at some point, imperfectly informed, butterflies in your belly, you'll still need to act, to own your unknown, to step into the abyss and therein discover your treasure. So I thought that was you know, quite a nice little paragraph. But you know, other things are things like take a forest bath. It's a Japanese thing, quite famous in Japan. It's really just about walking in nature. And some developments with that is about breathing in your biome, and microbiome's could be a whole nother presentation on its own, but we are really only about 10% human. There's a whole books on it. You know, there's microbes and bacteria, and they kind of control what we want to eat and think and all that kind of thing. And the diversity of the microbiome is shrinking because of toxins and kind of what we do to the planet. And one way to improve the microbiome is to go out in nature and breathe fresh air in different environments. So that is that particular point. And then, you know, a growth mindset, it's kind of the not yet principle, and it kind of relates back to the only unknown. It's about trying things anyway and having an open mind. So you might not know yet or understand how to do something yet, but embracing that growth mindset that you can learn and try new things. Spending some time alone can fill your vitality bucket. Finding your people, great for connection, you know, leaning into being okay with letting go of those that don't align with you anymore. And the great thing with this particular book, they have a free community, and you just pledge a bit of an oath about, you know, it's about, you know, being a good person and being kind and that kind of thing. And it's free to join and has meditations, all kinds of nice things. You know, cultivating compassion. You never know what someone's been through, and that can really help with connection. So can finding your love language. I'm not sure who developed that, but you can look it up online. It's basically like how you like to be loved. Some people like words of affirmation, quality time, gifts, that kind of thing. So you can find out what your love language is and what people around you have as well, and then you can love them in a way that they enjoy or appreciate. And then it's sort of like, when was the last time you did something that really lit you up, or spent time with someone that you loved? You know, can you do more of that? Can you practice a loving no? That's something I'm getting much better at, but it takes a lot of courage sometimes to say no. You know, finding movement that you enjoy. Things like meditation can help with, you know, connection, contribution, vitality, the whole lot. And I think the last point is really kind of a take on gratitude, but it's at the end of the day, thinking over or writing down things that went well, big or small, and why it happened. And a little exercise that's quite fun is a gratitude note, a letter to thank someone that you never thanked for something in your past. And the, you know, the next step to that is actually giving that letter to that person. So I hope that's been helpful on those points. And I'm just going to pause for a minute and have a drink of water, and then we'll move into the last section. And hopefully I'm not going too fast for everyone, but I think we've probably got about kind of 10 or so minutes left, and then we can take some questions. So the last part, which we just sort of didn't mention at the past, but it's on the event page, is part of pausing and reflection, and part of self-care is really looking at how to have what you eat become really nourishing for you. And, you know, what's most nourishing for you in the moment, and how you can channel your own inner nutritionist and improve how you digest food in a really short amount of time. And obviously nutrition, I'm a nutrition therapist, and so this is my, you know, kind of my bag and all the rest. So it's, how can this help with your self-care? And maybe help you feel more relaxed around what you do with food and how you look at that as self-care as well. And so I just wanted to start with something around metabolism, and I think Catherine, who's on, will get a bit of this as well. But essentially, you know, metabolism, the old definition was the sum total of all the chemical reactions in your body, the kind of calories in, calories out thing. But what that doesn't take into consideration is the research that's been coming through over the last 20 years. And the medical and food industry is interesting because it takes years of research before things become public knowledge. But what we think feel and believe also dramatically impacts all of the physiologic processes in the body, which is our metabolism. So the new definition, which is gaining traction now, is that metabolism is the sum of all the chemical reactions, you know, our food being digested and all our organs doing their stuff, but also everything we think, feel, and believe. And just to kind of make that a bit more, I guess, in layman's terms, is it's just really kind of thinking around the placebo effect. So a great example is, say, clinical trials when a new drug is coming out, and some people will be given the actual drug, some will be given a sugar pill as a placebo. And the people that receive the placebo, many of them react exactly like the drug would have them react, because they think so strongly that what they're having is that drug. And it, you know, with chemotherapy, people think they're getting that and they're not, and their hair falls out. So it's very, very powerful what we think and how it impacts our body. And so I just wanted to sort of, you know, lay the grounds there when we're thinking about food, and particularly as food as being nourishing for us. So I think, you know, good or bad, no food is morally good or bad. You know, if you label a food bad, then eating it might make you a bad person. And if you're a bad person, you get punished. And, you know, I think some of us can, I've certainly done it before too, going, oh, that's a bad food, and oh, if I eat that, you know, X, Y, Z. So this is an invitation to look at food a bit differently, to be more loving to yourself. And, you know, are there foods that you identify as bad or good? And could you start to look at those as neutral? And you can journal around this as well. But, you know, are there foods that you eat in moderation, but you know that they don't work for you if you overindulge? You know, what's your relationship with food, and what foods are nourishing for you? So a bit of, you know, self-reflection. So I guess it's that theme of, yeah, pausing and reflecting. And then knowing what is right for you. So that's quite rarely on the slides, but I wanted to leave that in case anyone wants these. But, you know, knowing what is right for you can be quite straightforward, and it's really about just channeling or tapping into, how do you make other decisions? You know, we take a moment and we tune in, and we can do that with food. How do you feel about what you want to eat today? And think about it like other areas of your life. So, you know, if a friend calls and wants to meet up, you think about it, feel into it, and have your response. You know, taking a holiday, or, you know, what am I going to wear today? You know, the same with food, and the same with those kind of choices. Does it feel good to you? Does it feel like something you want to do or want to eat, or something that you need? And that can extend to with food and other things too. What colors do you like? What textures do you like? What combinations are good for you? And so, you know, it's really just to labor the point that how we think and feel about our food is incredibly powerful, and it influences how our body receives the food and assimilates it. And that just means how it's broken up and used. And who we are with and our state of being when we eat influences the nourishment of our food as well. So it can be really simple, like asking yourself before a meal or a snack, is this what I need right now to nourish me? And really, it's all part of self-care. And then tuning in. What you can actually do as a simple exercise is, before deciding what to eat, is just sitting comfortably and taking, you know, about 5 deep breaths, just in and out. It's just very natural, without holding or forcing. And just consciously rest your mind and ask for insights from the wisdom of your belly, of your gut, you know, when we say gut instinct. And you can inquire with yourself what food would be right for you. You can, you know, symbolically swallow a food that you're thinking about and ask, does this work for me? And this might seem, you know, quite out there, but it's definitely a practice that can be cultivated over time. And something I love to do, which has had great results for my health, is detoxing and cleansing, and I lead people through those. And that's an amazing platform to start to tune into, from that place of cleansing and rest and fasting and detox, and then introducing foods and really tuning in, now that you're kind of really cleaned out, what is going to work for me. And you can really start to follow the advice of your own intuition and note how you feel. And so, you know, no matter what the experts are saying and how confusing advice can be, because it's pretty crazy with, you know, keto and paleo and vegan and all these kinds of things, you want to become your own expert to have the final word, because you're the manager of your own body. So I think having a guide when you need one is great, but really I think great guides will actually guide you home to yourself and what you need for yourself. And really personally empowering yourself is metabolic empowerment too. So the more you own your body's own wisdom, the more you empower the wisdom that you have, the more your metabolism changes and transforms. So I've only got sort of a few more slides on this, and then we can stop for some questions. But really, if nothing else, I wanted to share how you can improve your digestive function, which links back to self-care, because we want to absorb the nutrients from the food we eat. And such an easy way to do this is literally just to take 3 deep breaths before you eat. You can just put your knife and fork or spoon or whatever down and literally just take 3 deep breaths in and out, just really natural, nothing more to it than that. And this switches on the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest, and it initiates rhythmic breathing, regular breathing. It decreases your blood pressure too. And if you want to take it a step further, you can just sort of visualize your feet on the ground and sort of like roots going into the ground. And it's a perfect place to eat from. And you can watch what happens. You can see how you feel, and it changes the way your body digests. It changes the way you can absorb and break down the nutrients, and it fuels digestion, and it helps you to burn calories as well. So in the next slide, I go into a bit more detail about how that sort of works with oxygen, but this is really the simplest way to really start to tap into helping your body do the job that it's meant to do. And so breathing, it's all about breath, and this will help you come more in tune with what works for your body from a food point of view as well. So if you want to create a new habit around this, it takes about a week, and you can practice pausing and taking deep breaths throughout a meal. And if you do this over a week, it just starts to become quite automatic. Sometimes I actually struggle now with dinners where there's a lot of conversation, because I'm sort of really into my food and taking the breaths and just being kind of present with what I'm doing. But it will feel really good, and it will feel natural, and it really works for your metabolism. And that's because taking in more oxygen, you calorie burn more fully. The oxygen goes to the intestinal villi, and metabolism is oxygen. So when you bring oxygen to that area, you can absorb at a more rapid, complete and full rate, which is great, especially if you're eating lots of, you know, delicious fruit and veggies, and you want to get the maximum nutrients out of them. And, you know, it doesn't matter what kind of food, you need the oxygen to digest your meal. And I know a lot of people suffer with poor digestion because I think we rush, we're not so present, and we don't chew properly and that kind of thing. So sometimes we can blame the food that we've ingested rather than, you know, everything else that's going on at the same time. And so this is just more really about relaxing with deep breaths and tuning in, and just to really bring home that relaxation fuels digestion and burns calories. And it's not about, you know, that you have to have had the bath and the wine and all the rest before you eat, but just taking those few deep breaths will relax you. And when you relax, there's a lot of great chemical changes in the body. And, you know, oftentimes weight gain can be quite chemical in nature, and some of the most problematic chemicals we actually create ourselves from our thoughts, from stress. And so, yes, it's, you know, about what we eat, but also about how we're living, how we're thinking, and how we're being, which really all circles back to the piece on self-care. And so there's just a couple of slides left. Just wanted to kind of say, look, from a self-care point of view, there's no perfect diet. There's no, you know, list of things that you should be eating. The body changes all the time, especially for women. We have our cycles and we go through lots of phases in life. You know, we have children, some of us have children, so we have, you know, pre and postpartum and menopause and all these different things. So it's just really an invitation for you to relax into the changing nature of the body and the seasons and all the rest, and tuning into what works for you at the time. And, you know, we all look at food differently, and there's an opportunity to really create more internal freedom around how we see food. You know, we literally expand metabolism as we relax around what we do. And nourishment is not really about having, you know, all the green drinks and all the rest. It's what regenerates us, what helps us feel warm, feel healthy, feel energized. And there's certain foods that we say might not be so nutritional in the traditional sense, like your kale and all that, but they might be quite nourishing for us. So, you know, I guess if you're having the green smoothie, but you hate everything about it, and you're having negative thoughts and all the rest, it just isn't going to be assimilated as well or used as well if you can change perspective on the smoothie. Maybe try different things to make it taste nice, but view it as this fuel. This is nourishing me. This is feeding my cells. This is going to make me feel happy. And just the way you think about it may even change the way it tastes. But on the flip side, just trying to think of something else that you wouldn't say, oh, you know, that's a nourishing thing. So I'm in Australia right now, and I love the donuts here. They're hot, freshly made cinnamon donuts. It's just the best thing ever. And I wouldn't, as a nutritionist, say this is a nourishing thing, and I wouldn't put it on anyone's meal plan. But for me, occasionally, if I go past one of the bakeries and they've just made donuts and I can smell them, and I get one and I eat it and I enjoy every single mouthful of it, it's nourishing for me. I have great thoughts about it and I enjoy it. And so I've got one more slide to go, I'm fairly sure. Yes, this is the last one. So just an invitation to get curious about your self-care. Are you self-soothing to distract, or are you really doing self-care? And how can you feel good about what you are eating? And guess I just take a moment to move into that rest and digest state when you're eating, and some simple tips is really, you know, sourcing the best quality food that's available to you. And you'll likely find that by tuning in and slowing down, you'll naturally want foods that do serve you. And yeah, so thank you. I've just popped my details up there. You can go and find me on Instagram and Facebook and that kind of thing, and my website as well. So I will stop the share of the slides and then we can take questions.
That was brilliant, Kate. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I love that. I felt like you gave me permission to have donuts. So thank you for that. That makes me very, very happy, because I love them very much as well. But yeah, so many interesting tips and things that I wouldn't naturally think about. Yeah, Catherine agrees with me. Thanks. And we also had a question in the Q&A button, actually, from Olga. Jody Spezza, I like you even more. My question is that, is it normal if sometimes I feel so bad of the fact that I am not doing much during the day? I was always a very active person. My months will be booked and planned with lots of different events and activities. Nowadays, because of COVID, I find myself staying most of the time home, working from home, then going for a quick walk, and then you're damn Netflix. I feel very bad that my days are not that productive as they used to be. Honestly, don't put pressure on yourself. I feel the same. If that is any consolation, I think a lot of us feel that way. But what do you think, Kate?
Yeah, and I think it's a really, really interesting comment and point, because so I have been working with psychotherapists over the past 4 or so months, and I left my corporate job as well, so I can totally relate. So I'm doing my own thing, but I'm like sort of, you know, taking my days really slowly, and I'm, you know, I might not start doing anything till 11 o'clock. And all the rest, and I have all of these, and a lot of my anxiety and the crying in the bath stuff and all the rest actually was really related to what you're saying, because I was like feeling guilt for watching Netflix or taking my time. And I feel like a lot of it is just sort of reminding ourselves around those panic thoughts, which maybe some of that's happening in here, is that we were designed to we weren't really designed to be super productive and always be achieving. you know, as if you're going to go back to nature, you would be, you know, maybe going to pick some berries and making some food or whatever. And, you know, I think our current world demands so much of us. So it's really trying to flip the script, I sort of say, around some of these things. So, you know, do you need to be productive? Is this rest and rejuvenation time something that you were really, your soul was asking for? And how can you embrace that and make that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right in saying that we were not necessarily designed for such productive. And it's interesting how we feel guilt. I certainly felt like, before lockdown, I was organizing for Merit Club members 15 events a month, live events, you know, constantly full on meetings here, there, everything. And I was going crazy. And obviously I loved it. You know, that's what I do. And then lockdown happened and my schedule cleared, and I felt so guilty as I was like, I need to do more, you know, I need to feel useful, I need to do things because that's what's expected of me. But at the same time, you sort of don't realize how much time you spend traveling, how much time you spend going out of meetings and things like that. So maybe you are actually productive if you look at your whole day, but you haven't lost time doing the things that, you know, in the past took so much of your time, as I said, like traveling to meetings here and there, or even going to work or whatever. And you just feel like, you know, that hour there and back, you know, you actually might have just spent, you know, working on a blog post or whatever it is that you're working on. But at the same time, you just don't feel as productive. I find that was the case with me as well for a lot of time. So, yeah, I think it's just being a little bit more forgiving with ourselves with this situation. You know, we're going through a lot. You know, our generation has, and the previous one didn't have to go through anything like this. So it's all very new, and I think it's totally fine for us to figure out what works for us and what we want. So.
Yeah, and I think I just had a thought as well that just I think life ebbs and flows quite a lot over our lifetime, and I would just say embrace being less productive now. You know, because there'll probably be a time again, like Olga, when everything goes crazy for you again, maybe, and, you know, productivity goes to the roof or whatever. And just to kind of allow yourself this time now to rest and rejuvenate and maybe do some things that you didn't get time to do before.
Yeah, absolutely. We have another question. So let me just go for this one. Kelpa said, hi, I have had chaotic eating for decades. I'm in my late 50s with different diets, grapefruit, WW, Atkins, etc., etc. If it was out there, I did it unsuccessfully in the long term. I find it difficult to recognize satiety. Is that? Are there any tips that can help?
Oh yeah, sure. Sorry, I was looking at there's Q&A and then there's
chat. I'm doing.
I'm in the chat. Yeah, Kalpa, I think it's really interesting. I've actually just finished reading a book by a guy that's done a PhD in nutrition, and he goes through all the diets, and then the biggest sort of takeaway that I had from listening to him, and I think it relates to your question, is that there's tons of different diets and they all have like probably one key thing to them that's really helpful, and the rest you can kind of just throw away, because I think like the Atkins diet's really restrictive. The grapefruit diet is really restrictive as well. And my current client I've just had with like that being satiated and all these different diets is I sort of throw diets out the window. I don't generally get someone to follow a specific protocol unless they, you know, are gluten intolerant or whatever. But it really is that part that I was talking about really tuning in to yourself, and I guess acknowledging and understanding that we know ourselves best, even if we've been trained to think that we don't. So and with the satiation, really eating a meal, eating food until you feel full, like literally just eating, taking your time, breathing until you feel satisfied. And really look at, you could probably journal a bit as well, like what maybe foods that you consider bad or good, and see if you can reach a place of feeling neutral about them, so that the eating over time becomes more about what you want and what your body knows it needs, and eating until you're full, rather than getting really, really hung up on all the different diets. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that definitely has worked for me and with clients that I work with as well. So a lot of what I work on is encouraging a positive relationship with food and with health, and seeing food as our friend and as nourishment for us as well. Because as I was talking about, what we think and feel about the food has an impact on how our body receives it and digests it. So, and I know it's hard. I mean, with all these diets and experts and people shoving stuff down our throat, it gets really confusing.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I'm personally not one who can have a diet. If I restrict myself, all I'm going to think about is wanting to have that piece of cake or whatever it is. So for me, what works is just like taking more of an intuitive way of doing it. And Kappa just said, thank you. I love your idea of breathing through the meal. Yeah, I find that was really interesting as well. I've not one I had before, so it's really, really nice. Thank you. And then Jane was asking, how does one cope with not eating food that have become toxic for us, like gluten? This now makes me feel really unwell, and there are so many foods I cannot eat. You know what's funny? I did an intolerance test as well a couple of weeks ago, and it came out that I'm gluten intolerant. So I'm in the same position as you now, Jane. I shouldn't really be eating that. But what do you think, Kate?
Yeah, this is interesting, because if you so obviously as a nutrition therapist, I do work with people that have intolerances. They just can't eat something. So of course, then I'm not going to say just go and eat the donut or whatever, because it makes you feel unwell. And it depends how kind of deep you want to go down the rabbit hole with thoughts and how it affects us and all that kind of thing. But with a lot of foods, it depends. So like Christina, if it's more like an intolerance, which Jane, I don't know if it's like your celiac, or whether it's like an intolerance, but a lot of that can be addressed by fixing our gut health, and just something like a term that got thrown around quite a while ago was leaky gut, and it really is a thing, but it was kind of vague, so people didn't understand it. But because of toxins and food that maybe don't agree with us, we have really tight junctions in our intestine that kind of hold together really tightly, and our food is digested and broken down, and it does its thing. And over time, with just different toxins and what have you, the junctions become loose. And that's when on a food intolerance test, it will show as you're gluten intolerant. And you can work on healing your gut with broths, and taking the inflammatory food out for a little while and that kind of thing, and the junctions will tighten again. And you should be able to eat gluten again, because I had that on a test and it's not there anymore. So there's things like that, but I feel like, Jane, it really depends on whether you're a celiac, because if you're celiac, you can't eat gluten, and it's really difficult. So it's either, if you really can't eat them and they make you feel sick, you do have to avoid them, and that's challenging. And fortunately the world's changing, so there's a lot more gluten-free options and a lot more vegan options and things like that. But I know Olga Zinch-Joe Dispenza and a few people here, but you can also go quite advanced down like meditation and thoughts and beliefs paths, where you can heal yourself of celiac disease or heal yourself of food intolerances through really just energy healing of the body and meditation and that kind of thing. And there's monks that can drink arsenic, and people that can walk on fire, and those glass and stuff like that, and that's all just to do with our mind and what we think. But it's our subconscious programs are quite strong, so it's unpicking those and rewiring new thoughts and what have you can also help. But I think on a very practical level, it's really just seeking out options that are really nice. And I think, like, if it's the gluten, like Rana's Bakery in the UK are amazing. They do all gluten-free foods. There's a company called ABO Bread Company, and they do amazing gluten-free pizza bases. So there's options. You just got to seek them out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit of just inconvenience, isn't it?
Yeah, it
Sometimes.
is. It is. It really
But
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it was so lovely to have you, Kate. Thank you so much for answering all of the lower questions. I hope I didn't miss any. But just in case I did, I will include Kate's contact details in the follow-up email, so you ladies can contact her
Yeah,
in
feel
case you have any
free.
questions. But thank you so much for spending your lunchtime with us, ladies, and thank you so much, Kate, hosting it. Obviously, we're doing it so late. I
It's
hope you
fine.
have a good rest of the evening. I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you
See you.
so much. Bye bye.